We're here in the spring walk, and as you can see, some amazing colour. There's also a lot of perfume, and that's there to attract pollinators. There's something that you can't quite see in the plants, and that's the nectar. It's a little reward for the pollinators, and it ensures the survival of the plant. So here's how it works. The sweet, sugary nectar is a great food source for birds and insects. But for the birds and insects to get at the nectar, which is deep inside the flower, they have to brush past the pollen tips, which are on the end of these long stamens. Now they brush past the pollen, continue to take the pollen from one flower to the next, flowers are pollinated, and the cycle of reproduction continues. Nectar is basically made up of air, water, and sunlight. So it's pretty easy to produce, and some of our plants that grow in really challenging conditions have some of the sweetest nectar. And it tastes great. Now this Xanthorrhoea is a great example of a plant that will grow in a harsh environment, yet give up some of its water to produce a lot of nectar. This flower head is actually hundreds of individual flowers, and they'll continue to bloom all the way to the top. It produces a lot of nectar, and that's a great feed for birds and insects. The Sydney rock lily, one of our most spectacular native orchids, and like most orchids, beautiful sprays of flower and an absolutely stunning shape. Now inside, it's like a landing strip, so the insects even know where they've got to go. Once they're in there, they go over the lip and deep inside of the reproductive parts of the flower. The Sydney rock lily though, it's very tricky because the perfume fools these nectar-eating insects into thinking there's lots of nectar inside the flower, when in fact there's very little. So they go in, they find their way down there, they're bitterly disappointed, but not before they've taken pollen from one flower to the next. The time of day will also affect who's out hunting for nectar. Butterflies tend to like the watery nectar of early mornings, but bees like it thicker, so they wait till later in the day as a lot of the water has evaporated and the nectar has thickened up. Birds, on the other hand, they'll eat the nectar any time of day. Lorikeets love melaleucas, and this is what they're after. It's a beautiful flower, lots of nectar. You can see from this tree behind me, covered in flowers. The flower shape is a bit like a bottle brush because they belong to the same family. Common name is tea tree. We get the tea tree oil from the leaves. Now it's a great antiseptic, but it is poisonous. So it's actually a defence mechanism for the tree. It stops insects to come along and might eat the foliage off. Nectar is produced in the flower. It is edible, so it encourages animals and birds to come along, take pollen to other flowers, thus helping the reproduction. There are also many animals who are more active at night, and a lot of our plants, they've evolved to enlist their help. This bloodwood is a great example. Flowers, a bit like a cup shape, so they retain the nectar inside in the middle. And night time, you get the nocturnal feeders like possums, bats and rodents who come out for a really good feed. One of the plants that does the opposite are hibiscus. This is a lilac hibiscus, one of our southern natives. The flowers will close up at night so that those big critters don't destroy these delicate flower petals. At daytime, they'll open up again, and the flower's actually shaped like a funnel. So it's encouraging the pollinators to go down deep where the nectar is, brushing past all of these pollen tips. So many of our Australian natives produce a lot of nectar, like this grevillea here. Now, if you want to attract more birds and more animals, more insects into your garden, why not plant one of these or any of the plants we've looked at today?